Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Deep Dive. We use everyday objects all the time, but rarely stop to think about where they came from. Today, we're going to take a deep dive into the history of some of those things.
It really is amazing how much history is hidden in plain sight. Just think about how much these objects we use every day can tell us about, well, how people lived,
What they value?
the challenges they face.
Exactly. And I think some of these origin stories are going to surprise you. Let's start with something most of us use every single day, multiple times even. The humble toothbrush. Before the modern toothbrush, what did people even use to clean their teeth?
Well, there were chew sticks,
Feathers.
even porcupine quills, believe it or not.
Wow. I read that the earliest bristle toothbrushes, similar to what we use today, those popped up in China during the Tang Dynasty.
Yeah, they attached hog bristles to bamboo or bone handles.
And get this, they even preferred bristles from hogs living in colder climates. Apparently, the colder temperatures made the bristles firmer.
It's just, wow, the level of thought and experimentation that went into something we consider so basic today is pretty mind-blowing.
Absolutely. And speaking of things we take for granted, what about the fork? Seems pretty essential now, right? But for centuries, people were mostly just eating with their fingers.
Yeah, it's kind of funny to think about. The fork took a long and winding road to get to the dining table. It was adopted earlier in some cultures than others. And North America was kind of a late bloomer in the fork world.
Really?
Yeah, it didn't really catch on here until right before the American Revolution.
Can you imagine a world without forks?
Yeah.
Makes you think about what objects we use now might seem, strange to people in the future.
Oh, for sure. These objects are a reflection of how technology evolved, but also social norms.
Cultural practices.
Exactly.
All right, let's shift gears a bit and talk about something that completely changed how we get around: the bicycle. Those first versions were a far cry from the sleek machines we have today.
You had the bone shaker.
The bone shaker.
Yeah, in the early 1860s. It was aptly named, by the way. No suspension, solid rubber tires, wooden frame.
Ouch.
Talk about a rough ride. It really showed those early attempts at bicycle design.
Yeah, definitely not built for comfort.
But it was the first one with pedals attached to the front wheel, so that was a big step.
True. Then you had the high-wheel bicycle in the 1870s, or what was it called? The penny farthing.
Yeah, the penny farthing.
Right.
Giant front wheel, tiny back wheel.
Oh, I've seen pictures of those. They look so precarious.
Try to imagine trying to mount that thing.
I can't even imagine. No wonder cycling was seen as a daring activity back then.
Then, thankfully, the safety bicycle came along in the late 1880s. 2 wheels of equal size, chain drive.
Much lower center of gravity.
Much safer and easier to ride, thank goodness. And that design, well, that became the blueprint for all the bikes we know and love today.
Okay, moving on to something that's had a huge impact on how we capture and share the world: the camera. Well before Instagram and smartphones, people still had this urge to capture images.
Absolutely. The earliest example, the camera obscura, a device known since, get this, ancient Greece.
Wow, ancient Greece.
Yeah. They used a pinhole to project an image onto a surface, showing the basic idea behind photography. But getting a photo you could actually hold, that took a bit longer.
It wasn't until the 19th century that you could really capture and save images, right? Like the daguerreotype.
Exactly. It made incredibly detailed pictures on silver-plated copper.
And what about the calotype process around the same time?
Using paper negatives to make multiple prints, the detail in those photos from over a century ago is just amazing.
It's like that urge to record and share visual experiences has always been there.
And it's amazing the ingenuity of those early photographers who were basically building the foundation for photography as we know it.
Okay, let's switch to something that has really changed our world: computers. Before those sleek laptops we use now, computing looked very different.
Oh yeah, we're talking about things like the abacus.
Right. Used for calculations all the way back in ancient times.
It's incredible. Something so simple was used to do complex math for centuries.
That abacus really was a testament to human ingenuity and our drive to find tools that can simplify complicated tasks.
And then you had things like the slide rule in the 17th century, used by engineers and scientists.
But the real revolution started with the idea of a programmable machine, right?
Charles Babbage in the 19th century, what a visionary. He came up with the analytical engine, a mechanical computer to do complex calculations and even print the results.
So ahead of his time.
Truly. The analytical engine was never fully built. but his ideas were the groundwork for what we have today.
It's like those groundbreaking innovations don't always become a reality right away.
But they plant the seeds.
Exactly, for future advancements. And the 20th century, well, that was just an explosion of computing technology.
We saw electromechanical computers like the Z3,
Which one?
relays to do the calculations, and then there were the code-breaking machines like Colossus.
From World War II.
Yeah, massive machines, crucial for deciphering enemy codes.
And they helped speed up the development of electronic computers.
It's funny how wartime often leads to these big leaps forward in tech.
Those code-breaking machines,
Yeah,
meant for one specific purpose, but they changed the whole path of computing technology.
totally. And then you had the first stored program computer,
Yeah.
the Manchester Baby, in 1948.
Yeah.
It was the first computer that could store its program and its data in the same memory.
That was groundbreaking, right?
It was a revolutionary idea, paving the way for all modern computers.
And then commercial computers weren't far behind, right? Like
Yeah.
EDSAC and that legendary UNIVAC.
And then boom, a whole new era of computing was born.
I mean, it's mind-blowing how much computing power we have now compared to back then.
Right. But the basic idea of computing, of storing and processing information, well, that goes all the way back to those early innovators.
And they're incredible inventions. And as we go deeper, we'll see this pattern again and again. Innovations that build on what came before, pushing boundaries, challenging conventions.
It's a fascinating journey for sure. You know, it's really incredible when you think about it. All these everyday objects, we see them as so simple, so ordinary, but they have these rich histories, technological leaps, changes in culture.
And just human ingenuity.
Exactly. And we've really only just begun to explore them. Let's get back to those computers. That jump from those massive room-sized machines to the personal computers we use every day.
That's a fascinating story.
It really is. A major turning point was the invention of the transistor in 1947.
Oh yeah, the transistor.
This tiny device, it could amplify and switch electronic signals.
Making it possible to build.
Much smaller, much more efficient computers.
I've definitely heard of transistors, but honestly, I don't really get their importance.
Oh, they were huge. Imagine building like a really complex machine using thousands of these big, fragile vacuum tubes.
And those were...
Yeah, those were in the early computers, each one generating tons of heat. Transistors, though, tiny, durable, and used way less power.
So that was a big deal for making computers more reliable.
And smaller.
Oh, right, miniaturization.
Exactly. It set the stage for integrated circuits.
Like microchips.
Yep, combining multiple transistors on a tiny piece of silicon.
So computers got even smaller.
And their processing power just exploded.
So the transistor was kind of this domino effect, leading to all these breakthroughs in computing.
Exactly. A small innovation can have a huge impact on how technology develops.
Makes you wonder what small innovations happening right now will be those big game changers in the future.
That's what's so cool about innovation. Unpredictable and full of surprises. Now, while we're talking computers, I gotta mention computer memory, early computers.
It had such limited storage.
Oh, yeah. It must have taken so much creativity to work with those limitations back then.
I bet.
For sure. They use things like magnetic drum memory. Picture a giant spinning cylinder coated with this magnetic material.
Not exactly the solid-state drives we use today.
Nope, not even close.
With their, incredibly fast access times and tons of storage space.
Totally different world back then. If you were a programmer then, you had to be incredibly clever.
I bet. To use that tiny amount of memory effectively.
Oh, absolutely. They had to come up with all these techniques to squeeze every last bit of performance out of it, thinking about the size of their programs, their data.
They had to be super resourceful.
Oh, yeah. Makes you wonder, have we lost a bit of that ingenuity now that we have so much computing power?
Interesting point. Maybe working within those limitations actually forced people to be more creative.
Right. Like necessity is the mother of invention.
Exactly. Okay, let's switch gears back to bicycles. We were talking about how the safety bicycle became the model for all modern bikes.
Yeah, but the story definitely doesn't end there.
What happened next?
Bicycles kept evolving, new materials, designs, technologies. The pneumatic tire in 1888 was a game changer.
Oh yeah, much smoother ride.
Way more comfortable, made longer bike trips possible.
Can't imagine riding with those old solid rubber tires for very long.
Ouch. The pneumatic tire, it made cycling so much better. More people started riding for fun.
And we started seeing all these different kinds of bikes.
Yep, road bikes, mountain bikes, BMX bikes, each one designed for a specific use.
And terrain.
Right. And it shows you how bicycles changed as technology advanced, but also as people's needs and how they spent their free time changed too.
It's crazy how a simple bicycle can tell us so much about how people lived in different times.
Absolutely. Okay, how about we jump back to photography? We were talking about the daguerreotype and calotype, but those are pretty complicated processes.
It seems like every advancement in photography was about making it easier.
And more accessible.
Right.
A major step was the gelatin dry plate in the 1870s.
Which did what?
It got rid of the need for those wet plates, the ones that had to be developed right away. So photography became more portable and way easier to do.
No more lugging around a portable darkroom.
Exactly. People could go out, take pictures anywhere. Photography became a lot more popular.
And that's when we started seeing all those different camera designs.
Yep, in the late 1800s and early 1900s, everything from basic box cameras to more complicated ones like twin-lens reflex cameras, a golden age for camera design.
Right. And then the 35mm film format became the standard.
Especially for those fancy compact cameras. The Leica eye, introduced in 1925, that was a big one. Small, great lens. Photographers loved it.
Oh yeah, those old Leicas, they're beautiful.
Like little pieces of art.
But the real revolution was switching from film to digital, right?
Oh, absolutely. But that took decades. One of the key pieces of tech that made it happen was the charge-coupled device.
The CCD.
Yeah, converts light into electrical signals. It was actually first developed in the 1960s for memory chips.
But someone realized it could be used for digital imaging.
Yep, that's how it often goes in tech. A technology for one thing ends up changing something completely different.
Wow, so the heart of digital cameras was actually meant for something else entirely.
Exactly. It just shows that innovation can come from anywhere.
Yeah.
Sometimes the most groundbreaking discoveries are just new ways of using existing tech.
All right, let's hear more about how digital photography took off.
Well, the first digital cameras, just prototypes really, those were developed in the 1970s.
They were huge and expensive, right?
Yeah, they were. But they showed what was possible.
I remember seeing a picture of that early Kodak one. Looked more like a toaster.
Haha, yeah, I can see that. But like most tech, they got smaller and cheaper pretty quickly. In the 1990s, more and more consumer digital cameras were being developed.
And by the early 2000s, digital cameras were outselling film cameras.
Yeah, it completely changed how we take and share pictures. Hard to imagine life without them now.
And then came the real revolution. Cameras in mobile phones.
Putting the power of photography in the hands of billions of people.
Now everyone has a great camera right in their pocket. It's amazing. It's totally changed how we capture our lives and share our experiences.
For sure. But this access to photography also brings up a whole new set of questions.
Like
Privacy, surveillance, even whether images are real in this digital age. All things we'll be exploring as we continue our deep dive.
Welcome back. Man, this deep dive into everyday objects has really given me a whole new appreciation for the things we use all the time.
Me too. It's just amazing how much we can learn about, well, ourselves and the world by taking a closer look at the history of these objects.
And as we've gone from the abacus to the digital camera, I keep thinking about how connected it all is.
Oh, absolutely. It's not just like a bunch of random inventions.
Right.
They build on each other, creating this incredible web of innovation.
Yeah, like how the transistor was so important for computers, and that led to digital photography.
It's a great example of how progress isn't always a straight line.
More like a winding path.
Totally. More like an ecosystem where ideas from different areas come together, and sometimes those unexpected breakthroughs happen in the most surprising places.
And through it all, you see human ingenuity and creativity pushing things forward.
From those early inventors working with, like, almost nothing to the engineers today who are pushing the limits of what's possible.
It's that drive to solve problems and make our lives better, you know?
And it's not always about those big, huge breakthroughs.
Right.
It's also about the small steps that make things easier to use, more efficient, more accessible to everyone.
Like how the bicycle evolved from that bone shaker to, like, a modern mountain bike.
Or the gelatin dry plate, which made photography something anyone could do.
And sometimes those big discoveries happen in the most unexpected ways, even by accident.
Right. Like, who would have thought a device for memory chips would change photography forever? Or a prisoner coming up with the idea for the mass-produced toothbrush?
Crazy. I guess it reminds us to always be curious, to question things, and be open to new possibilities.
Exactly, because innovation often comes from combining different ways of thinking, different areas of expertise.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, what do you think is the biggest takeaway from exploring the history of these everyday objects?
I think it's about understanding the power of human innovation to shape our world. For good or bad, We've seen how these seemingly small inventions can lead to huge changes in society and how we live.
It's kind of humbling, actually.
Mhm.
Like, our actions today, even the small ones, can have a big impact on the future.
We have to use our creativity wisely, ethically, so that technology helps people and doesn't hurt them.
That's a great point. So, as we go about our day using all these objects, let's all take a moment to think about the ingenuity behind them and how they've changed the world.
And let's never stop asking questions, exploring, and diving deep into the stories behind the things that make up our world.
Thanks for joining us on this journey. We had a blast. And until next time, keep learning, keep questioning, and keep exploring.